Hey folks, Michael Smikun here from Callagy Law, and I am joined by the most amazing James Yin, who is a tremendous entrepreneur in the space of funding, has tremendous interest in business development, real estate development, and also has some really interesting, amazing things that he's doing for the community in terms of his foundations in rehabilitating zip codes, starting with the house and education. And I have James here with me today because a lot of folks right now are asking questions about, with the coronavirus and how it impacts their business. What am I going to do if I'm looking for financing? What are my options? How do I explore these different vehicles that I can utilize? And James happens to be a tremendous expert in this space. So James, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Wow, Michael, that was a awesome introduction. Thank you.
Well, you're an awesome individual and you deserve it. James is also a member of the Platinum Brotherhood for Tony Robbins, and is really huge in that space as well. So, James, can we just dive right into it? I'm a small business owner, right? I have 10 employees, and with coronavirus, I've had to shutter my doors. I have no revenue coming in. I have payment obligations, I have utilities, I have insurance payments, I have all of these things that I have to do and obligations that I have to meet. How do I continue to manage my business if I don't have the revenue, if I don't have the cash coming in to continue my growth, to continue the things that I've set out and the outcomes that I wanted to achieve in 2020? What do I do? Where do I find the answers on the financing side? What do I do? Who do I turn to? What types of vehicles are there that are available for me?
I guess the first step is just breathe. And you need to basically give yourself a financial checkup. It's kind of like, where's your starting point? It's like you're not going to self-diagnose yourself and be reactive, because the first instinct is to be reactive. You need to go basically get a blood checkup and see where you are financially and get those documents in order. Because if you're going to apply for any loan or anything, you're going to need to get your financial house in order. The first step actually starts with you.
Yeah.
And, checking your credit, getting those bank statements ready, minimizing your expenses and budget, because there's a lot of things, we're worried about growing our business, but the first step is playing defense, and defense wins games. And the biggest one, I believe, is your taxes, first of all, and try to minimize your taxes, minimizing your expense so that you have extra money to try to save your business. But not only that, because if you're paying off your high interest debts, because, most people think about an investment at like 5 or 8%, but your credit card interest is like 14 or 20 or 29%.
Right.
That's hustling backwards. So just paying off those things that will increase your credit score, so it becomes that you're more fundable, because the main job is actually to get yourself credible and build your business the right way so you're fundable in the eyes of the lender. You have to make the lender fall in love with you. But there's different options, because a lot of these people are either strong in one of the three areas. It's either your FICO score, it's either your cash flow in your business, or your collateral. Or it's a combination of all three. And then that way you can see what loans are available to you, because there's not one loan that's better than the other. You really got to assess your situation, because a lot of times we don't know, and it's very complex and, overwhelming. It's like there's a myriad of banks and you don't know which one's a tier 1 or a tier 2, or what their loan programs or the underwriting guidelines. So it could be really confusing, but they don't teach us this in school.
Right.
So
right.
The first step is to see where you stand.
So in the three that you mentioned was your FICO score, the cash flow of your business, and what collateral you may have available inside your business in the form of assets or intangibles and things of that nature. Is that fair?
That is correct. And I also think that you should also see and project in a year into the future, at least, what are your expenses? Because now, to apply for the loan, you also have to look at how much do I really need to apply, because you could shoot yourself in the foot and try to apply for too much, because you really got to know these ratios of your debt to income, because the bank is only going to lend you as much as they think that you can afford.
Amazing.
So if you try to apply, yes.
No, I was just going to say, would you mind sharing, because we're talking about banks and we're talking about loans, would you mind just giving a little bit of background on like what types of vehicles are available to small businesses that have somewhere between 10 to 20 to maybe 30 employees? Like what types of vehicles are available specifically?
Well, right now, because Trump just released the $50 billion for SBA. I know that's still a drop in the bucket, but still, it's the lowest interest rate loan because they dropped it down to 0%, but now it's 0 plus prime. So the bank has to add a couple interest points off of it. So it's about 3.75 right now for commercial, and for non-for-profit it's 2.75, and they amortize it over 30 years, which is great because a lot of these other loans, they're very short-term loans. And what do you think of the monthly payment? So I think that one's really good, but the bad part about it is there's a lot of documentation, to deal with anything from the government because these are government-backed loans. There's a lot of bureaucracy behind it and a lot of paper. So you're going to have 2 or 3 years bank statements, tax returns, and, you know how the banks does. They ask for everything under the sun. So they also want to know what you...
So, and I apologize for that. But you just said 2 years of bank statements, tax returns, and things.
No, I tax returns, and they usually ask about 6 months bank statements.
Gotcha. So, can I ask you this question? You said that it takes a long time. How long is a long time before you can get from opening to?
The loan limits are up to $2 million, but their sweet spot is up to $350. That's the express loan, and it's usually like under about a month or so.
The 350 is.
You would rather say more than less. I know time is of the essence, but that's it is what it is. Nothing. You know how the government is. Nothing is fast with the government, and they want to protect their interests.
I think we were talking over each other. How long did you say it would take to get an SBA loan, just roughly, conservatively?
Usually it takes 2 months, but the express loan takes about 30 days or less.
2 months.
Every situation is really different.
So can I ask you something? What can a business owner do today if he goes, look, I feel like I'm strong enough financially to be able to get an SBA loan. What can I do today to speed up the process? So I'm going to pull the trigger when this money becomes available. I'm going to reach out to someone like you, James. Like, what would they do to get into position to speed that process up as much as possible?
Well, the first step, like I said, was to get your financial house in order, get those documents ready, because they're going to ask you for all those. And also to try to boost up your credit. Try to actually, get your cash reserves, prove that your debt to income ratio so that this way, everything's in order. So there's no documentation that's being asked for because the underwriter is going to ask you for those documentation and you're going to verify everything. So this is called like a manual underwriting. So they verify your job, your employment, everything under the sun. And if you make it easy for them, they're going to make it easier for you. Because sometimes the loan is held up just by one single paper. Like, for example, you give your bank statements and there's page 1 of 6 and the last page 6 is blank and you don't think you need it, but they want to see every page. And you could be held up just for a blank piece of paper.
Now, James, can I ask you a question? Is there a resource that someone can turn to besides you? And obviously, we're going to want your contact information. We're going to want to post that with any videos that we put out there so that people can use you as a resource. But is there a resource that business owners can turn to today to kind of familiarize themselves with what an SBA loan requires?
Definitely. The best place is just to go to SBA.gov. They're very informative. Yes. And everything is public information, so they're very informative. They tell you what it takes, the process. They won't really tell you the underwriting guidelines, but they'll tell you what the process takes and what documents you need to provide.
Amazing. So, James, can I ask you this? Besides the SBA loans, what other vehicles are there available to the kind of business owners that I just described? 10, 20, 30 employees, operations of that size or even larger. What other opportunities are there available?
Well, there's alternative loans. Like I said earlier, that you're either strong in one of these 3 areas. Either it's your credit, your collateral, or cash flow. So if it's like cash flow, There are alternative loans where if they just need 6 months bank statement, and through that they see like your average, and they'll lend you based off your average, but it has to be a minimum of $10,000 cash flow revenue, not profit. But they also see that if the revenue is increasing or decreasing. So if you're decreasing for like 2 or 3 months straight, they're not going to lend it to you. So it has to be, or they have like disaster relief assistance program, which I forgot to mention, the SBA. But if your business fell under 25%, but it has to have it happen after the fact, not that your business was suffering before you applied for the loan. There's collateral loans.
Can I ask you about that a little bit more before we jump back into the standard loans? So
Sure.
what do you have to do to qualify for disaster relief? So your revenues have to decrease by 25% after, like, let's say coronavirus, right? So coronavirus comes along, you're doing fantastic, you're making, $1 million of sales, and then suddenly over the course of the next year, your sales drop to $720,000 in sales. Like, is that what we're talking about? Like, now we're in the disaster relief?
Yes. They mainly want to make sure that you're one of the industries that are being directly affected, because there are certain industries that are profiting from this and are doing well. So they want to make sure that it is directly affected by that. Okay. So there's actually, I just saw yesterday that even besides loans, but they have assistance from people in New York, because I'm from New York, that help business owners and employers. So for anything after this call, I can shoot you that information so you can share with your community.
Oh, that would be fantastic. So, and I apologize, I know we're bouncing around here. I want to try to disseminate as much information as humanly possible in the shortest period of time. But so we were talking about other loans based on, for example, your cash flows. So if your cash flows were strong before coronavirus hit, and you expect that once your doors reopen, the cash flow is going to come back, that makes you a candidate for certain types of loans based on your cash flows.
That is correct. And there's also collateral ones.
Okay.
And if you're strong in collateral, like if you have like a 401k, IRA, real estate, even office equipment or medical equipment, you can borrow against that. That's an easy one. Interest rates are usually around 5%. There's also credit-based, which is probably the easiest one to get, and it's not tied to your personal credit, but they do look at you as the personal guarantor, or if you have someone to co-sign for you as a guarantor. That's right. They will tie it to your E&I number, because your E&I number is basically the company's tax ID number, and the government looks at your company as like basically a person. So you could get up to basically $100,000 to $150,000 in business credit. Like you'll get like 4 or 5 credit cards that are basically 0%, and it's usually 12 to 18 months. But like I was telling you earlier, that it's a caveat that because a lot of people that come for these type of loans are not great money managers, so they should invest it into things that will grow their business. Because a lot of times that they go into debt, and you don't want to further compound that problem that you have.
So is it fair to say that when you're discussing your application or your need for funding on any of these transactions, you want to come with a business plan that talks about growth, that talks about opportunity, that talks about being able to take advantage of a growth opportunity that is there for your business, and it wants to be, your discussion should be less about, I can't keep my doors open unless I get this kind of money. Is that fair?
Yes, because they still want to sometimes for the SBA like a business plan, what you're going to do with this money, but they don't want to see anything speculative. So they're just going to base it on facts and figures and past data. So even if it's like for commercial real estate, or let's say, they can't do it off of projected income. Right. And even if you had release, they're just going to look at what is your basic income right now, and they're going to lend off based off that.
Right. Got it. So we talked about SBA loans. We talked about disaster relief. We talked about cash flow loans and things of that nature. We talked about collateral, right? Backed loans and things of that nature. What's your experience with grants and the ability to get grants?
The grants are great. I'm not too versed in that, but that's something I'm getting into. The grants are great. There's a wealth of information. It's called the Grant Locators. I believe the guy's name is, well, I can't think of it off the top of my head. I'll also provide that information. He's one of the best. Oh, his name is Chris Johnson. He's one of the foremost grant people, which I can provide that information. But he helps, and you could go on and just have to know the process, and it has to have something of a benefit. It's either
Right.
through business or education, or in that sense.
Got it. So when we're talking about potentially grants, maybe this individual, we can provide contact information for Chris Johnson, or maybe we all jump on the phone together and we chat with him about grants. So, I guess, James, are you okay with people in the community reaching out to you and contacting you for guidance on these types of challenges?
Sure, that's not a problem. At least I'll give them a business strategy session to see where they're at, to where they're going, to see what their options are. Because it's more like trying to fit the loan product like a shoe. There's not one product that's better than the other. You really got to assess your situation and pick the right product.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. So, James, I appreciate your time here. I'm going to leave it to you. Closing thoughts here, and we're definitely going to be providing your contact information. We'll attach it to the bottom of the video just to make sure that we have it. But final thoughts in wrapping this all up?
I guess just working with anybody. Just remember, if you find anyone out there as a good advisor, they're supposed to weigh out all your options, and they'll give you the expert advice on which avenue to take. But ultimately, it's your choice. So you have to try to look at all the facts and try to project the year out. How much you really need. Like I said, don't shoot yourself in the foot. Get your financial house in order, and hopefully everyone gets through this.
Amazing. So, James, again, I apologize. I'm sorry. I just want to say thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your knowledge in this matter. And then, guys, please, if you have any questions with regard to SBA loans, disaster relief, or any of the other loans that were mentioned here, please contact either our office and we'll put you in touch with James, or you should be contacting James specifically. And we're gonna have his contact information below is the video, so you can reach out to him directly. James, again, brother, I just want to say thank you so much, and I greatly appreciate everything.
Oh, thank you. And I appreciate that you guys also.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.